Coming up on AgweekTV, what impact will the 2020 election have on agriculture? We provide expert insight. Farmers are back in the fields trying to harvest the last of the crop after an early snow in October.
On the Soil Health Minute, we'll answer questions about fall fertilization and disease pressures on cover crops.
And we'll take a closer look at the effect COVID is having on rural hospitals and communities. Welcome to AgweekTV. I'm Michelle Rook. Agriculture will see some big changes after the 2020 election, especially in the leadership of the House and Senate Ag committees. Topping the list, House Ag Chair Collin Peterson of Minnesota was defeated by Republican Michelle Fischbach. Washington insider Mary Kay Thatcher says that's a huge loss for agriculture.
Collin Peterson has just been the greatest leader, whether he's been the chairman or the ranking member of the House Ag Committee, and for years just working so hard for agriculture. And, you know, he knows how to push the buttons. He knows where to get things done. You know, certainly he doesn't always vote with Nancy Pelosi, that's for sure, but he does know how to get to her when agriculture needs help. And that's not to say any of the three candidates that are probably up for his seat won't be fine, but they're just going to have a huge learning curve. You know, you can't replace 30 years of experience like Collin has overnight. So I'm sure everyone in agriculture is mourning his loss today.
Who becomes the chair of the House Ag Committee now?
Well, that's up for grabs. David Scott from Georgia would be one possibility. Jim Costa from California, from an agricultural area, but more into the fruits and vegetables than corn, soybean kind of thing. And then the third option is Marcia Fudge, who is from the Cleveland area. And so all of them will be, I think, quite different than Collin's background of corn, soybeans, sugar beets, et cetera.
So talk about where the leadership now goes in the Senate Ag Committee with Senator Roberts of Kansas not rerunning for his seat either.
Senator Bozeman from Arkansas is next in line, and he's been, quote, getting ready for it for the last year or so, knowing that Pat was retiring. And I'm sure there's a lot of Southern farmers feeling really positive about his escalation to that position.
It does change the dynamics a little bit when you do go into writing the farm bill this next time around, though, doesn't it?
It changes them quite a bit. I mean, you think about issues like payment limits and like what are the ARC or the PLC or whatever kind of programs we have to happen to have after the next election. You know, are they skewed more towards corn and beans, or are they skewed more towards cotton and rice?
3 Ag Committee leaders are now gone after the election, representing a loss of 85 years of experience, 30 alone for Collin Peterson. But his defeat will have the biggest impact on agriculture in our region. Farm broadcaster Don Wick has followed ag policy for many years. He says the Trump factor and longevity cost Peterson his seat, and it's hard to replace his clout.
He could get into really the minutia of farm policy, whether it's dairy policy or crop insurance or sugar policy. There's not a lot of folks on Capitol Hill that have that expertise. So certainly agriculture, I think, is certainly challenged by the loss of the chairman.
Wick also watched other regional races that impact agriculture.
Steve Daines out of Montana winning his reelection. In Minnesota, Tina Smith, she came back and won her seat. Joni Ernst out of Iowa winning that race. I think that's huge, particularly as we got issues like the RFS and some of those ethanol-related issues still hanging out there.
Despite these wins, the Ag Committees will look much different in the new Congress. This week's warm-up helped melt the several inches of snow that fell in October. That allowed farmers to get their combines back out and finish up the 2020 harvest. I headed to the field for an update. The harvest was moving at record pace in South Dakota until the snow delayed farmers like Rick Even.
Put us behind about a week, but it's going good now, so I'm thankful.
Even was dealing with muddy fields and was glad to have tracks on his equipment to reduce soil compaction, but admits the snow made combining corn a challenge.
It slowed us down, but plugged the combine a couple times, but we worked through it.
And it's worth it as he's harvesting the best corn he's ever grown on his farm.
We're running 230 to 240, dry, 13 and a half. So never seen it like this before, so thankful.
Even entered the corn yield contest and was shooting for 300 bushel yields and still believes he has a winning strategy.
So I think the combination of the good Lord, the rain and the fertilizer and the technology.
Despite the hiccup, South Dakota's corn harvest was still running 32% ahead of normal on November 1st at 85%. That also compares to only 23% harvested in 2019. Even with the early snow, Mother Nature has been much more cooperative compared to the disastrous harvest in 2019, which included a wet crop and a record amount of grain drying. However, this season, crop maturity got pushed along with the heat and dryness in August, and the grain dried down quickly. This has resulted in farmers having to dry very little of their crop. Typically, it costs about 3.5 cents per point to dry grain. So this is a huge savings for farmers like Jeff Thompson, who even had to dry soybeans last fall.
I'm sure I saved, probably a couple of $2,000-3,000 over last year. The gas prices themselves, the propane was quite low, but we just didn't go through the gallons.
He says with the warm temperatures during harvest, any grain that needed to be dried took very little propane. With the drying bottlenecks and propane shortages in 2019, the region's governors even had to sign proclamations to extend the hours of service for the delivery of propane. This hasn't been an easy season for pulse crops like lentils, dry peas, and chickpeas, but one expert says there's still reason to believe in them. An ongoing trade war with India, the world's largest consumer of pulses, hurt demand for U.S. pulses. So did the trade war with China, another big buyer. But prices are slowly improving, and U.S. awareness that pulses are an affordable quality protein source is growing, especially with the pandemic, and it signals optimism for U.S. producers.
We can now focus on our domestic partners and our domestic consumers, where we've traditionally been an overseas market. Now we're wanting to do is feeding our customers closer to home.
Poor prices this spring caused many producers to plant fewer lentils and dry peas in western North Dakota and eastern Montana. But Anderson says overall, it was a good growing season. Up next on AgweekTV, we'll see how small towns and rural hospitals are coping with COVID-19.
Mice are a real problem and get into everything. They leave a scent trail, bringing more mice to the party. Poisons and traps just lure mice in, leaving you with the mess and costly damage. Introducing Mouse Mix, the world's safest and most effective deterrent. The pleasant scent interferes with the mouse's sense of smell. Simply put, they can't stand it. Mouse Mix works 6 months for complete winter storage of campers, cabins, boats, cars, and farm equipment. Mouse Mix, you put it out and the mice leave.
You've worked your entire life for this. Through the ups and downs, you've stood strong, building a legacy to be proud of. With all good things in this world, there are still risks. It's a part of life. You need protection you can count on. We're not just here to insure your equipment, your vehicles, or your home. We're here to protect everything you've built. Farmers Mutual of Nebraska, always alongside you.
At Superior Grain Equipment, we're committed to quality and service, offering you the best in grain storage and dryers for any size operation. Our experts will work with you to determine the most efficient and economical storage solution for your needs. We help protect your bottom line and your future with the industry's best bins and warranties. Make the superior choice for protection today and tomorrow with Superior Grain Equipment.
This is Dennis Belisky reminding you we do auctions and we do them well. You've built your operation with hard work, and when it's time to sell, all or part, you deserve the best. Details from repairs and preparation to promotion and settlements are not routine. Chances are you'll only do this once, so we'll tailor an auction just for you and get it done right. On site at your farm or added to one of our highly successful Alaris Center auctions, we have the skill, reputation, and integrity to meet your needs with best-in-class commitment and quality service. Find us at resourceauction.com or call 701-757-4015.
North Star Ag has a new location and a great lineup of equipment to help you work smarter this harvest season. Make the most of your time in the field this fall with the help of a Thunder Creek service trailer. We also carry innovative J&M grain carts as well as H&S beet carts to get your crop out of the field efficiently. North Star Ag is a Meridian Hopper bin dealer too. Visit our website, give us a call, or check out the new location at the Tower City exit right off I-94.
Welcome back. As the number of COVID cases continues to rise in the upper Midwest, many small rural hospitals are overflowing and schools are making tough decisions. In this week's Agweek cover story, Noah Fish looks at how small towns are coping with the pandemic.
Our ambulance transfers have tripled. Our emergency room visits have tripled. I think my staff is tired. I think they're exhausted.
In recent weeks, North Dakota has become the nation's worst COVID-19 hotspot. It has the most cases and deaths in the U.S. Beverly Vilhauer, the CEO of South Central Health in Wishick, North Dakota, says they're dealing with increasing COVID cases.
It really didn't peak until about 6 to 8 weeks ago. Some of the people maybe in these areas, they didn't take it seriously.
South Central Health is a small critical access hospital. The town of Wishick owns a hospital and clinics in neighboring small towns. Vilhauer says COVID has limited their ability to transfer patients to bigger hospitals as they usually do.
But now with COVID, those hospitals are full. Their ICU beds are full.
So instead of transferring them, they're forced to keep more of the non-critical patients.
Over the last 6 weeks, we've really had a struggle with the patient beds and the availability of an ICU bed.
Blooming Prairie, which is near Minnesota's southern border, had to cancel the homecoming football game after a player was exposed to someone with COVID-19. That's a big deal in any community, and Activities Director Allison Mack said it was a very difficult decision to make, but she says everyone seems to be supportive.
Certainly it's disappointing, but we've always, worked to make sure everyone was safe, first and foremost.
So while COVID, closures, and cancellations ripple through rural areas, these communities are trying to stay positive. This is Noah Fish for Agweek.
You can read more on this story in the next Agweek magazine or at agweek.com. A very dry year in parts of the region cut hay and silage production for many farmers and ranchers. Mikkel Pates talked to one who's glad for a carryover from a wet 2019.
We have about 500 acres of alfalfa that we put in and a couple hundred acres of corn, and that gets us by.
Bill Klosalik says he grows it mostly to feed his own cattle. He owns a cow-calf operation near Mandan, North Dakota, where he and his wife Connie raise red and black Angus and some Angus cross. At one point, he was up to 500 cows, but he's cut back to 350 cow-calf pairs. He also custom feeds calves in the winter.
I always say I got plenty of hay, I just got too many cows.
But he may not have enough hay this year. Klosalik says he only got 9 inches of rain in 2020. Normally they get 16 to 17 inches.
The silage went from 18 ton to an acre down to 7. That was kind of hard to swallow when we got her in the pile there. And the bales were down to half what we normally would get.
Klosalik hopes the feed that he saved from 2019 will get him through the winter. But if not, he might make some big changes.
My intentions, if I have to buy hay, I'd rather, at this point, I think we're going to cut back on cows, sell the cows.
Klosalik says he may cut back by 100 cows. His goal is to have 200 cows by the time he retires to keep as a hobby. In addition, he's had an excavation business for more than 40 years.
I always tell people it's nights and weekends when you want to do something with egg. Because if you're working in town, you have to put those nights and weekends in.
Near Mandan, North Dakota, this is Mikkel Pates for Agweek.
Gray wolves will no longer receive federal protections under the Endangered Species Act in the continental U.S. The U.S. Interior Secretary says after more than 45 years as a listed species, the gray wolf has exceeded conservation goals for recovery. The delisting means management of wolf populations will revert to local wildlife agencies. The species has long been admired and vilified, especially by ranchers. But as the population has grown, more cattle producers have seen wolf attacks on their cows and calves. So the Minnesota Cattlemen's Association says the decision is good news for cattle producers in the northern part of the state.
What we're pushing for to bring it back down to that state level is so that we have a very flexible management plan across Minnesota, so we can have a really cost-effective management plan for all of our producers across the state.
A comment period is now open for the management plan. There's more information on the Minnesota DNR's website. Still ahead on AgweekTV.
Can disease pressure in your cover crop affect next year's cash crop? We'll find out on the Soil Health Minute.
Steffes Group, selling land and the equipment to farm it since 1960. If you're interested in selling or have questions about our auction process, head to our website at steffesgroup.com to contact us at any one of our 4 locations located throughout the Midwest. You can also visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel to view all of our auction previews and recaps to stay up to date on the market in your area.
Insurance. It's not something you think about every day, but it is something you need to get to your next destination, to preserve what you've built, to secure what you'll leave behind, to safeguard the things you value most. Enjoy peace of mind knowing you have protection from the unexpected, security all year round, and expertise you can trust. Farmers Mutual of Nebraska, always alongside you.
Advanced Grain Handling is your regional dealer for grain handler dryers, bins, and accessories. With Grain Handler's continuous mixed flow drying systems, you're capable of high levels of grain dryer efficiency on all types of grain, including seed grain. Advanced Grain Handling also carries West Steel's quality stainless steel products for on-farm and commercial grain storage solutions. Advanced Grain Handling has licensed and trained service techs and a licensed electrical shop. Get a hold of Chad Kylo to find the perfect solution for your farm.
Challenges. We all face them at some time. But it seems that ag has seen its fair share over the past few years. Has your farming operation been able to stand the challenges? If not, maybe it's time to talk to the risk management specialist at Martinson Ag. We can help you make the sound decisions to help your operation weather the storm. Martinson Ag, your one-stop shop for crop insurance, livestock insurance, and marketing. We are here to take your operation to the next level.
Go beyond the headlines with an Agweek membership. Get in-depth agribusiness reporting, original farm and ranch stories, and fact-based research for the most comprehensive ag news in the upper Midwest. Experienced ag journalists bring you exclusive ag news, insights, and policy updates you won't find anywhere else. Become a member today and get unlimited access to Agweek and AgweekTV.
Our warm, dry weather has been great for harvest this week, but it looks like a pattern shift is in the works. Here's John with our agri-weather outlook.
Weather portion of AgweekTV now. Following the big warm-up of last week, that first week in November, we're headed back into a colder weather pattern, but it doesn't look too harsh. Not nearly as far below average as the last half of October was. Generally speaking, the Northern Plains region still looking to stay primarily on the dry side at the coasts of the country. The East Coast will be fairly rainy, and it looks like the Pacific Northwest, maybe even parts of California, will be getting at least some rainfall. And there's one significant snowstorm to talk about. Now, we talked about a potential snowstorm in last week's segment. This kind of a southwest to northeast pattern as the colder weather builds into the northwest is going to kick out a snowstorm, but it will be well to the northwest of most of the northern plains. We'll take a look at that in the precipitation in a minute. But the chillier weather is moving on in. It's not going to be extremely cold because there isn't going to be snow on the ground over much of the northern plains region. It will be kind of cold. Some of the days are likely to be below freezing, some a little bit above. Warm weather will continue down across the deep south. If you want heat, you're going to have to go to Mexico or Florida or the Caribbean, in this part of the world anyway. And frigid weather is still kind of lurking up in the high latitudes. It looks like as we get to the second week of this period, that will begin to trek southward just a bit. Note the cold in the northern Rockies, most of the Rockies really, over through the Hudson Bay region, really beginning to get a grip, but it's not penetrating much of the United States except in the higher elevations. This jet stream just not of a shape that's going to go up and get that really cold air and drop it southward. Looking ahead to the second week, as I mentioned, the frigid weather will begin to make a little bit of an appearance, staying mostly way up north. And for much of the United States, the pattern is going to generally be sort of not that cold, slightly above average for the middle part of November. And it's going to mean some of these days in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa, and the Great Lakes, a lot of the days are going to be above freezing, although not much above freezing, 30s and 40s, things like that. The cold weather will be out here to the northwest of the Great Plains. where there will likely be snow on the ground. And that's because that's where the snowstorm is going to be. As the cold weather begins to build down into the states, you're going to see an area of snow break out of Montana up across Alberta, Saskatchewan. That storm, which could be a fierce one, is going to make its way up toward the west side of Hudson Bay. But a lot of North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota is going to be fairly dry. Eastern part of the country will have some rain, and on the west side of that snow in the west, there will be some cold rain in the Pacific Northwest. Moving ahead to the second week then, it's still going to be fairly wet in the Pacific Northwest, still fairly dry in the middle.
Mice are a real problem and get into everything. They leave a scent trail, bringing more mice to the party. Poisons and traps just lure mice in, leaving you with the mess and costly damage. Introducing Mouse Mix, the world's safest and most effective deterrent. The pleasant scent interferes with the mouse's sense of smell. Simply put, they can't stand it. Mouse Mix works 6 months for complete winter storage of campers, cabins, boats, cars, and farm equipment. Mouse Mix, you put it out and the mice leave.
Keep your equipment in the field when you need it most with parts from Titan Machinery. We carry a full line of high-quality Case IH parts designed for optimal performance and durability. We also carry alternative parts options at lower price points with rugged designs for a great mix of affordability and performance to fit a wide variety of makes and models. Contact your local Titan Machinery location today or shop online at www.titanmachinery.com. Titan Machinery, your local Case IH parts leader.
When you think about it, productivity starts at planting. So it's time to rethink how productive your planter can be. We did with the new Case IH 2000 Series Early Riser Planter. We rethought your row unit so it's tougher, more accurate. We rethought your meter, took the most precise technology, factory installed it. We rethought every inch of the Case IH Early Riser Planter to make it the most productive planter around. And if you think about it, that's exactly what you want.
If you have a basement waterproofing or structural emergency, Safe Basements North is here to help. Our team of basement repair professionals will find the cause of the problem and work with you to develop a permanent solution. Safe Basements North is following CDC recommendations and is here to help keep your home and family safe. For a free consultation, go to safebasementsnorth.com and take advantage of our 12-month, no-interest, no-payments offer.
I'm Jesse Treble, and peace of mind is a safe basement.
We're going to talk today about a revolutionary auto steer product that you guys have developed.
We back one of these things in, it'll drain a 40-acre patch just within hours.
What can you tell us about what dairy farmers do to make sure that their animals are happy?
Their care is our primary concern.
Is there still time for producers to get storage bins up?
Absolutely. We still can definitely get something up and ready for corn harvest.
The Agweek Soil Health Minute is sponsored by the North Dakota Corn Council.
In this year's episodes of the Soil Health Minute, Dr. Agweek talks to the experts to answer your most asked questions. Today, the topics are fertilizer application and disease transfer.
With an early harvest and an interest in going into reduced till systems, I'm getting a lot of questions from farmers about how do I fertilize in this type of system and what kind of time do I have this fall to get that fertilizer on the ground. So I asked Dr. Dave Franzen, the NDSU Extension Soil Specialist, how would farmers go about that this fall, but then also in the spring if they didn't get their fall fertilizer down in a reduced till system?
There's quite a few people in this region that do strip till, and so there's always a question, can I put all my fertilizer down with strip till when I make my strips? Well, the best time to make the strips is as soon as you get your small grains off, your early crop off. It's okay for your phosphate, potash, but you don't want to put your nitrogen down that early. There's always a little bit of a penalty in putting on nitrogen in the fall. Sometimes it's very small, sometimes it's a little bit bigger. It depends on all the rainfall you get and how long a fall there is. If you can get it on this fall and you can get it on in good soil conditions, then you're ahead of the game for spring. But if you go into spring and didn't get a whole lot on in the fall, don't feel too bad about it because the efficiency of your nitrogen that's applied in the spring is usually greater than that in the fall.
Another question I often get is about disease pressures from cover crops going into cash crops. So I asked Dr. Andrew Friskop, NDSU Extension plant pathologist, what he thinks about that and what we need to be watching out for next year in our cash crop.
When you think about cover crops and diseases, the two questions that come into mind is A, how do they overwinter? And B, what type of host do they infect? So if we want to use rust as an example, leaf rust we find on cereal rye, we know it doesn't overwinter in the state and it's blown up from the south. So A, we're not going to worry about it from this year's cover crop, but potentially what's going to come up from the south next year. Second thing about rust, it is very host specific. So the leaf rust that's hitting rye isn't going to move to dry beans. It's not going to move to wheat. It is very specific to rye. So a couple things to keep in mind is how does the disease overwinter, and more or less what host is it going to hit next year.
For more information, you can check out the NDSU Soil Health webpage, or if you have a question you want answered on the Soil Health Minute, you can contact me with the information on your screen.
Still ahead on Agweek TV, some FFA members from around the region take national honors.
Advanced Grain Handling is your regional dealer for grain handler dryers, bins, and accessories. With Grain Handler's continuous mixed flow drying systems, you're capable of high levels of grain dryer efficiency on all types of grain, including seed grain. Advanced Grain Handling also carries West Steel's quality stainless steel products for on-farm and commercial grain storage solutions. Advanced Grain Handling has licensed and trained service techs and a licensed electrical shop. Get a hold of Chad Kylo to find the perfect solution for your farm.
Agweek brings you timely agriculture news from field to fork in digital, print, and television. Fresh every week, join Jenny Schlecht from the Agweek editorial team and me, Al Windmill, from the sales and marketing team for a deeper dive into farm and ranch stories, along with guest interviews with personalities from the world of agriculture. If you're involved in farming, ranching, or agribusiness, the Agweek podcast is the show for you.
For Agweek, this is Mikkel Pates at Watertown, South Dakota.
We'll look at the positive impacts that dairy can have on the community.
A Minnesota couple has put a grain bin to a new use. Spoiler alert, it's not grain.
This elaborate system of tubing with the downhill slope is how Maplewood State Park gathers sap to make syrup.
Thanks for joining us for this week's edition of Agweek TV. Remember, for all your ag news, go to agweek.com or follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Every year, 40% of all food in the U.S. never gets eaten.
40%. That's almost half the food we produce.
Food waste is a serious problem. It impacts all of us.
And it's expensive. Your family is throwing $1,500 a year in the trash.
We're working hard to put food waste on the chopping block.
And you can do the same at home.
Learn how to cook it, store it, and share it.
Just don't waste it.
Go to savethefood.com.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
Several FFA members from the region took top honors at last week's 93rd Annual National FFA Convention, which was held virtually due to COVID-19. Cole Ketterling of Wishick, North Dakota, was named the 2020 American Star Farmer. And Gettysburg, South Dakota FFA member Hunter Eide was named the National Proficiency Award winner for the Agri-Science Research Animal Systems area.
My SAE consisted of 4 agri-science research projects testing delayed fertilization of landlocked fall Chinook salmon that are collected right here in the Missouri River.
Minnesota's Paige Stuber also won the National Agri-Science Research Integrated Systems Proficiency Award. Thanks for watching this week's edition of Agweek TV. Remember, for all your ag news, go to agweek.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Have yourself a great and safe week.